Welcome to a tale that begins with a mystery so deep it held an entire town in its grip for 30 long years. Imagine a summer night when a family simply vanished, leaving behind empty rooms and endless questions. The Harper family, known for their quiet ways and strong community ties, disappeared without a trace, sparking whispers, rumors, and sleepless nights. But decades later, a single confession reignited the case, unraveling secrets buried in old diaries, hidden tree houses, and abandoned cabins. As you listen, picture yourself walking through those same woods, piecing together clues alongside detectives determined to uncover the truth. What they found will leave you questioning how well we ever truly know our neighbors or ourselves. Stay with me now as the story unfolds. It was a mystery that had haunted the small town for decades. The Harper family, known for their introverted ways and community involvement, vanished without a trace on that fateful summer night. When they didn't show up at the banquet they usually volunteered for, and neighbors found the house empty, search parties soon scoured the town. It seemed like the Harpers remained lost to the town and the world for that matter, as detectives ran into dead ends. However, 30 years later, during a routine police interview, their next-door neighbor uttered a confession that reopened the case. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. The town had never been the same since the Harpers disappeared. Rumors and speculation about their fate swirled endlessly, but Detective Thomas, who had been on the case from the beginning, was convinced they hadn't simply moved away. Despite numerous dead ends, the police never abandoned hope of finding a clue that would solve the mystery. It was during the latest round of interviews that Bill Layton's turn came to speak. Bill, now 37, had been close friends with Evan Harper, the eldest of the Harper children, at the time of their disappearance. Typically, Bill claimed not to remember much, but this time he seemed nervous and had something new to share. Detective Thomas greeted him warmly, recalling the young boy who had been deeply shaken by the loss of his neighbors and best friend. During the interview, Bill revealed a memory from the day before the Harpers disappeared. He had seen his parents at the Harpers' house. His father was arguing with Mrs. Harper on the porch while his mother and Evan appeared concerned. Bill's mother eventually interrupted the conversation, leading them inside the Harpers' house. Detective Thomas, intrigued by this revelation, asked if Bill knew the nature of the argument. Bill admitted he didn't understand it at the time and had only recently remembered the incident. When asked why he chose to share this information now, Bill expressed a desire to solve the mystery and assist the police. Satisfied with his response, Detective Thomas called his team to the briefing room to discuss the new lead. They decided to re-interview Bill's parents to verify his story. Understanding the delicacy required after so many years, Detective Thomas and Officer Ramirez visited the Layton's home, where they were met with surprise and unease. Inside, Mr. Layton appeared nervous while Mrs. Layton busied herself in the kitchen. Detective Thomas gently broached the subject of the argument Bill mentioned. Mr. Layton, visibly uncomfortable, claimed not to remember much, while Mrs. Layton's hands trembled as she poured coffee. Detective Thomas pressed on, asking Mr. Layton to elaborate on the argument with Mrs. Harper. Mr. Layton, flustered, insisted he didn't know what Bill thought he saw. The tension in the room was palpable as the detective sought to uncover the truth behind the Harpers' disappearance. Reluctantly, Mr. Layton admitted to having a minor argument with Mrs. Harper, claiming it was unrelated to the disappearance. Mrs. Layton confirmed they had visited the Harpers' house but insisted nothing unusual happened. Despite their assertion, the detectives sensed the Laytons were withholding information during the questioning. Officer Ramirez noticed Mrs. Layton's nervous glances at a locked cabinet in the living room. When asked about it, she dismissed it as containing old family items. The detectives left, but their suspicions grew. Back at the station, Detective Thomas decided they needed a warrant to search the Layton's house, believing the cabinet might hold crucial information. With a search warrant in hand, the police returned to the Layton's house. Despite the Laytons' protests, the officers proceeded with the search. They opened the locked cabinet and found old letters, photographs, and a diary belonging to Mrs. Harper. Detective Thomas began reading the diary, which revealed tensions and secrets between the Harpers and the Laytons. The diary entries suggested a complex relationship and hinted at a confrontation before the Harpers disappeared. The new information prompted Detective Thomas to call Bill, the Layton's son, back to the station. Bill was shocked to learn about the diary and the issues between the families. He claimed ignorance of the diary and any family problems. However, he mentioned a secret hiding spot in an old treehouse where he and Evan used to leave messages. The police decided to search the treehouse in the Laytons' backyard. Detective Thomas and Officer Ramirez, accompanied by Bill, climbed up to the treehouse. Inside, they found a wooden box containing handwritten notes exchanged between Bill and Evan. The notes, while mostly childhood chatter, hinted at deeper concerns. Detective Thomas noted a pattern in the messages, revealing Evan's fear and suspicion that his parents were hiding something significant. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives realized they might be on to a significant breakthrough. The notes suggested that Evan had been aware of something troubling within his family, which could be linked to the disappearance. The discovery of the diary and the notes in the treehouse provided new leads, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth behind the Harper family's disappearance. The notes revealed secrets and fears Evan had kept hidden. "We need to figure out what he was talking about," Thomas said, considering the possibilities. One note caught Detective Thomas's attention. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a sentence. Evan mentioned a place in the woods where he planned to go if things got worse. He asked Bill if he knew where this place could be, but Bill shook his head, admitting he had no clue. Determined to find this place, Thomas decided they needed to search the woods, hoping to uncover more clues. Detective Thomas quickly organized a search party. "We need to comb through the woods," he instructed his team. Using the directions from Evan's note, they mapped out potential areas to search. "This could be our best lead yet," Thomas said, filled with determination. The officers geared up and prepared to venture into the dense forest, hoping to find the place Evan mentioned and any clues it might hold. After hours of searching, the team stumbled upon an old abandoned cabin deep in the woods. "Over here," Officer Ramirez called out. The cabin was partially hidden by overgrowth and debris. "This must be the place," Detective Thomas said, feeling a surge of hope. The team cautiously approached the cabin, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. "Let's see what we can find," Thomas urged, his heart pounding with anticipation. Inside the cabin, the team made a chilling discovery. "Look at this," Ramirez said, holding up a toy. "These belongings are the Harper family's." Detective Thomas picked up a piece of clothing, recognizing it from old photos. "They were definitely here," he said, tense. The cabin held signs of recent habitation, confirming the Harpers had been there before disappearing. "We need to figure out what happened next," Thomas said, determined to uncover the truth. Detective Thomas and his team surveyed the cabin's interior. Clothes, toys, and various personal items were scattered everywhere. "This confirms the Harpers were here," Thomas said, picking up a child's shoe. Officer Ramirez nodded, examining a family photo. "They must have stayed here for a while," he added. The atmosphere was thick with unease as they realized the significance of their find. "Let's keep searching," Thomas urged, hoping to uncover more. As they continued to search, Detective Thomas noticed something odd. "There's a loose board here," he said, prying it up to reveal a hidden trapdoor. "Looks like it leads to a basement," he observed, shining his flashlight down the dark stairway. "Let's check it out," Officer Ramirez said, following Thomas down. The air grew colder as they descended, the promise of more clues pulling them forward. In the basement, they discovered a makeshift living area. "Looks like they stayed down here for quite some time," Officer Ramirez noted, pointing to the bedding and food supplies. Detective Thomas picked up a family photo lying on a small table. This wasn't just a quick hideout, he said, realizing the extent of the Harper stay. They were trying to escape something serious. The room was filled with the weight of their discovery. Among the items in the basement, Detective Thomas found a journal. "This belongs to Mr. Harper," he said, flipping through the pages. The entries detailed their plans to leave town, citing a threat from the Laytons. "They were scared," Thomas said, reading aloud. "They felt they had no other choice but to disappear." Officer Ramirez frowned, absorbing the implications. "This changes everything," he said. "We need to find out more." The final entry in the journal was the most revealing. Mr. Harper mentioned meeting someone who promised to help them disappear. Detective Thomas read aloud, "This person could be the key to understanding what happened." The entry raised more questions than answers. Who was this person, Officer Ramirez wondered? And why did they want to help the Harpers? Thomas closed the journal, determination in his eyes. "We need to find out." Detective Thomas focused on finding the mysterious person who promised to help the Harpers disappear. "We need to dig into their connections," he told his team. "Look for anyone they might have reached out to for help." The officer started reviewing old records and contacts. "Whoever this person is, they hold the key to solving this case," Thomas said, determination clear in his voice. The team began tracing phone records and financial transactions from 30 years ago. "This is going to be a long shot," Officer Ramirez said, sorting through the data. "Wait, here's something," he added, pointing to a suspicious payment. It was made to a private investigator. Detective Thomas leaned over to look. "Let's find out who this PI was and see what they know," he said. Hope rekindled. Detective Thomas received a notebook filled with codes from the private investigator Simmons, which he believed would help unravel the mystery. Back at the station, Thomas and his team decoded the notes, leading them to a safe deposit box in a nearby city. Eager to uncover more, the team headed to the city, hoping this would be the key to solving the case. Upon accessing the safe deposit box, they found documents and money intended for the Harpers' new life, detailing their new identities. This discovery provided solid evidence, prompting Thomas to confront the Laytons. At the Laytons' house, Thomas presented the evidence, urging them to reveal the truth. Under pressure, Mr. Layton confessed to blackmailing the Harpers, using information from a past crime to control them. The Laytons claimed they never intended harm, but wanted to maintain leverage. With the confession, Detective Thomas arrested the Laytons for blackmail and obstruction of justice, reopening the case. The team then focused on finding the Harpers, tracing financial transactions that led to various small towns, indicating the Harpers had been living under new identities. The team meticulously followed the trail, closing in on the Harpers' location. Eventually, Detective Thomas located the Harpers in a small town, living as a different family. Approaching them carefully, Thomas informed them of the Laytons' arrest, assuring them of their safety. The Harpers were initially shocked but soon relieved, expressing gratitude and agreeing to testify against the Laytons to ensure justice. Returning to their original town, the Harpers were welcomed back by old friends and prepared for the trial. Detective Thomas announced the resolution of the 30-year-old mystery to the press, revealing the Harpers' return and the Laytons' arrest. The town, once haunted by the Harpers' disappearance, celebrated the closure and justice achieved, with a festive mood and a sense of relief filling the air. Detective Thomas felt proud of the community's resilience and the successful resolution of the case. The trial of the Laytons commenced in a packed courtroom filled with townspeople and reporters. The Harpers took the stand, their testimony critical. "We lived in fear for years," Mr. Harper stated steadily, with Mrs. Harper nodding and adding, "The Laytons controlled us through threats and blackmail." Their words vividly depicted their past ordeal. Detective Thomas observed, aware that their courage was essential for justice. The court found the Laytons guilty and sentenced them to prison, prompting cheers outside the courthouse. "Justice has been served," Detective Thomas remarked to Officer Ramirez. The verdict provided closure for the town, ending a troubling chapter. The Harpers embraced, relief evident on their faces. "It's finally over," Mr. Harper said, tears in his eyes, as the town could now move forward, free from past shadows. With the Laytons imprisoned, the Harpers decided to return to their original town. "This is where we belong," Mrs. Harper stated. They began rebuilding their lives, reconnecting with old friends, and finding new purpose. "It's strange, but it feels like coming home," Mr. Harper said, smiling. The community welcomed them warmly, ready to support them. Detective Thomas knew their journey was far from over, but it marked a new beginning. Detective Thomas stood proudly as the police chief pinned a commendation on his uniform. "For your perseverance and dedication in solving the Harper case," the chief announced, and the room erupted in applause. "You never gave up," Officer Ramirez said, shaking Thomas's hand. "Thank you," Thomas replied, humbled. The recognition was significant, but knowing the Harpers were safe was the true reward, giving him a deep sense of accomplishment. The town gathered for a ceremony honoring the Harpers and Detective Thomas. Banners and balloons adorned the town square. "Today we celebrate the end of a long-standing mystery," the mayor declared. The Harpers stood beside Thomas, smiled all around. "We are grateful for everyone who never gave up on us," Mr. Harper said, tears in his eyes. The crowd cheered, the air filled with joy and relief. It was a day of healing and new beginnings.